There's many reasons why the Camino was fascinating, but one of the biggest questions that fascinated me is how does something survive for 1,000 years? When you think about things in the world, there's not many things that are 1,000 years old. This path has survived for 1,000 years through civil wars, through religious wars, through world wars, through dictatorships, even through the Black Plague. This trail survived. So what is the secret to this trail? Why do people keep coming back to this trail? 7 simple values that pilgrims are asked to live while they're on the Camino. And these 7 values, they struck a chord with me because they weren't particularly complex, they weren't religious. I thought these were really common sense, useful things that people everywhere could use, both in the workplace and elsewhere, and they had a deep impact on me. So for me, when I think about that question, what was it that the Camino gave me that paid me back more than the blood, sweat, and tears it took me to walk across Spain? This was a big part of it, and I thought that gift could help others, so that's why I wrote this book. And the reason I walked 24 miles in one day was because I screwed up in my planning. I had this great itinerary, and I somehow jammed 2 days into one, so I had to walk 24 miles in one day. And so that next morning when I got up, I was very grumpy, I was very sore, I was mad at myself, and then the day started off with this huge hill. So I'm walking forward, and there's a huge hill in front of me, and I'm sitting there thinking, there was no clouds in the sky. It was a really hot July day in Spain, and I'm thinking, why am I here? What on earth am I doing walking across Spain? Maybe I bit off more than I could chew with this walk. But I walked up, and about halfway up the hill, I saw a marker on the side, and the marker was to a pilgrim who had died on that spot trying to go up that mountain. And as I sat there, that marker had a big impact on me and helped me put my challenges into perspective. Because I realized that even though I was having a bad day on the Camino, I was on the Camino. And I loved being on the Camino. This town called Najera late, and it was 8 or 9 p.m. And as I went to dinner, I saw other pilgrims, and I showed them my blisters, because that's what pilgrims do. You show each other your blisters. And then, so my fellow pilgrims told me I should probably get those checked out because it looked like one was getting infected, and I should go to the pharmacy. And then there's only one pharmacy in town, so I limped there. And when I got there, the doors closed, and there was a close sign on, but there was an older man in there cleaning up. And I didn't knock on the door, but he walked into the door when he saw me. He cracked the door open, and he just said one word. He said, "Peregrino," and that's the Spanish word for pilgrim. And I said, "Yes." And then I pointed to my blister as a way to tell him why I was there. He said, "Un momento." He opened the door, and he pushed a button on a call box right by the door. And about 5-10 minutes later, a very irritated pharmacist showed up in a white jacket, and she asked me, the question she asked me made me think that she thought I needed heart medication or something life-threatening. When I told her it was a blister, she was not happy. She chewed out the old man, but she gave it to me, and the old man kind of blamed the language problem, saying, I didn't understand the American. But he, as he walked me to the door, he grabbed my hand, shook my hand, smiled, and with a conspiratorial wink said, "Buen Camino." He wished me well, have a good walk. So that man knew exactly what he was doing. He knew he was going to get chewed out, but he saw a stranger in need, and he decided to be the kind stranger. It became this huge optimization problem for me. I tried to balance each day to get as close to 15 miles without going over or under. And then by the end of it, I had a huge spreadsheet because when I went to business school at Wharton, I had to take this class called linear programming. It's about building optimization models, and it was never useful in the real world, but I finally had a chance to use it. So by God, I did, and I made this huge spreadsheet with the perfect route, all the right distances, and I was very proud of myself. And then a couple days before I left, I figured I probably should have a map with me too, so I looked on Amazon, and I found a book that had pretty good maps in it, and I said, I'm going to buy that. And Amazon told me, you've already bought that. And I realized that earlier when I was looking for trails to do, I'd bought this book, but I never read it. So I found it, and I looked to the first page, and the first day of the walk was pretty much what I had done. So by doing this massive spreadsheet, I had recreated what this book had done. And which I wasn't feeling the spirit of those who'd come before me, because if I were smart, I would have realized that if people have been walking this trail for 1,000 years, someone probably came up with a pretty good route. But the book itself is not just a book about Camino stories, as wonderful as those are, and they're not just my own stories. So I interviewed over 100 other pilgrims from 16 countries, and they shared their wonderful Camino stories with me, and I was able to include many of those in the book. But the real reason I wrote the book was to translate these lessons that I learned, these 7 values plus other lessons I learned, to people who either haven't walked the Camino, may never walk the Camino, or who can just use these lessons in their everyday work life and other places. As I read this, a lot of the feedback I get from people is they're motivated to walk the Camino, and hopefully, I hope some of you, if you haven't walked the Camino, you're now a bit more interested, because I firmly believe that every time someone takes a step on the Camino, the world is made a slightly better place, because people meet each other from different countries and they build relationships that I think that help everyone. So if the book or other things do inspire you to walk the Camino, I hope that I can be the first one to wish you the greeting that all pilgrims say to each other, Buen Camino. Thank you. Thank you.